Hello, everybody. Welcome, 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 welcome. I'm Diana. Welcome to Quilt Lab Sunday, and welcome to Sew in Common. Let me find my little clicker thingy here. Welcome to Quilt Lab. I'm Diana. This is Sew in Common, where we create quilts with our embroidery machine, using the hoop of our embroidery machine, from piecing through the finished quilting. So I'm thrilled to have you all with me today. Welcome to all of our new viewers. Welcome to all of our new subscribers from this past week. It's so lovely to have you with me. And of course, welcome to all of our subscribers that have been with us for a while too. It's always great to have you all with me. And today in Quilt Lab, we are going to do our mix match block number 3, and we'll go into that more here in detail in just a little bit. At the end of this section, there will be some mini videos that are the demonstrations for how to do the individual segment components. And so, you know, when I sign off, there's a little bit more for you to see too. So this week has been a good week, but we're back into the 90s. Thus, I have the sleeveless top on again. Holy smokes. I wish this heat would break and stay broke. It's supposed to be nice tomorrow. It's supposed to be like all the way down to like 71, which is great because we have, Dave and I have a home. It's not really a repair. We are running here in the studio is where the main cable is for all the internet and stuff, so that if something happens during the day, I can get to it. And so I run off the Ethernet rather than off Wi-Fi, because Wi-Fi gives you really spotty signal and stuff. I learned that working for another group several years back now. So Dave always has to work off Wi-Fi, and if he's working from home, he keeps getting cut out. So we are running a cable under the house up into his office and setting him up with Ethernet thing and all of that. So that's coming. Actually, when you guys see this, it'll be Sunday, so it's coming today. I always film on Saturday, so it's actually by the time you guys see us, we'll probably be working on it, unless it's still the middle of the night for us where you are. I don't know. But anyway, so that's a big project. And so I'm glad the weather's going to be down to like 70, 71. And I think next week it's supposed to be back in the 80s, the low 80s. Low 80s is perfect. But this high 90s into the hundreds for us is so unheard of and miserable. It's just literally miserable because we've had a lot of rain too. So there's been a lot of humidity and stuff. And with allergies, it just makes it 10,000 times worse. Anyway, but I hope you all have had a good week. We had a fantastic time on Wednesday night workshop live, which we did on Thursday this week. Thanks everybody again for being okay with me switching it that night, as I had a meeting that I had to be in, which would not allow me to be here during our normal time. But we did it on Thursday and we had a great time. We've got a lot of new folks doing that. I'll share that project with you and all here at the end before I sign off too, so you can know about it. And if you want to join us for Wednesday night live workshop, you can too. It's right now we're doing an actual project. We'll do different things. Wednesday night, we're always on live at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I hope if you have a chance, you can join us. You can always catch the replay on the next day. All righty, everybody. So I thought we'd do a little review because this is our last Sunday in June, right? Next Sunday is July, and we start a whole new block. Yay! I always love when it's new block reveal week because I get all excited. I'm the one that's either completely designing a new block, or I'm taking a really classic block and digitizing it for us in the Build a Quilt system and all of that. So I always love reveal day. So that's next week. And so if you are part of the Quilt Lab subscription service, you'll be getting your link on Saturday, so that you can download your free copy. Everybody else is welcome to either go and subscribe to Quilt Lab. And I've got a little video all about the Quilt Lab subscription, I'll try and link that here at the end. I'll try to remember to do that, because even though we're halfway through the year, you would still get all of the benefits and all of the blocks that we've already had this year. And really being a part of the subscription service is the best way to get the most benefit out of Quilt Lab. But if that isn't for you, you can always go and purchase your individual pattern sets. Quilt Lab patterns always come in 3 sizes each month. And so you can use them in the segments to create blocks of different sizes and mix and match into blocks of different sizes as well. So I'm going to show you this month's block was the Spinning Argyle Diamond. I loved how this, and the spinning part comes because every 4 of these that you put together creates a pinwheel block in the center. So I loved how this turned out. And you can see, I'm going to show you the back of mine. I've not washed my stabilizer out here. I don't do that until we're done with the month because I like you all to see it. I need to repress mine. After a while, getting thrown around and all my pressing isn't great. So before after I wash it out and I press it, all of that will be just as flat as a flitter and it'll look fantastic. So that is this. And if you're wondering about doing patchwork in the hoop, it's super simple because all of your seam allowance, all of that is built into your digital file. And so if you're someone who doesn't, can't quite get that 1/4 inch, or, you're afraid you're going to make a little mistake on your cuts, you don't like squaring up your blocks at the end, you don't have to do any of that when you piece in the hoop with Build a Quilt. So it's fun. If you have been quilting for a long time, like I've been a quilter for 55 years. So I've done the hand quilting. I've done the sewing machine quilting. I've done all of that. And now, since I've created Build a Quilt, that's the technique I use. I just like to call it the 21st century way to do patchwork. Just another technique that allows more people to do patchwork quilting. So, and if you're a traditional piecer and quilter and you still love it, and go for it. If you have a home embroidery machine though, and you want to give something new just a try one of our free projects over on the website too. I think you'll enjoy it as just a little switch up. And then if you ever get to the point where doing a more traditional quilting technique is more difficult for you, maybe you have problems with your hands, maybe your eyesight isn't as good like mine, then Build a Quilt will always be here for you for sure. Alrighty, so this was our Spinning Argyle Diamond. And then what we did this month is what I like to call the mix and match blocks. So this block is 10 by 10. This was the largest size. It was 6 by 6, 8 by 8, and 10 by 10 this month. And so in the month of May, the block was the same. And it was this one right here. It was the Blooming Star block. And this block was really special because we talked about in May about putting blocks on point. You can see that this has then been put on point here and then made back into a square. And we did that by using plain triangles and these fancy corner units. So this isn't a square and 2 parts of a 1/4 square and 2 parts of this is all one unit here. And so by putting those on as single units, it was much easier, less seaming altogether. So that makes less bulk. And as quilters, we're always trying to get the bulk out of our quilts, right? Because it makes the overall finished quilting process easier, whether you do it on your embroidery machine or on your sewing machine or still by hand. It just makes getting over some of the areas that have more seams where they come together a little bit easier, less seams altogether. So that was May's block. But if you've been with us for a while, you know that this year I took all of the Riley Blake Block Challenge blocks and created them, and they were all 10 by 10 as well. That's the only size they came in. So I created all of them in the Build a Quilt format. And so there's a set of 16 of these blocks plus a sashing set. And with these sets, with this set, you can mix and match all your pieces, make your own blocks. Here's another one. This was Garden Path, I believe. Here's another one, which I love because this centerpiece would be a great centerpiece for a mix and match, or this makes a great individual block by itself, like for a mug rug or something like that, because it's 5 by 5. So you can do so much with these. And so what I did for today is we've mixed and matched part of the May block with one of the Riley Blake blocks, and I'm going to show you that in a minute, but let me show you the other two mix and matches that I created. So on week 2, we created this one, and if you see the center, that is 1/4 or one of the blocks of our Spinning Argyle Diamond, just one of those. And then I used the triangles and the corners of our May block, and we created that beautiful star. And I've never seen a star like that ever. So this kind of might be an actual new block. Yay! We found out something completely new. Sometimes putting segments together creates other classic blocks that you may have seen. Like some of the Riley Blake blocks were classic blocks that you see under different names, but the designer created it in special fabrics and things like that and kind of made it its own beautiful version of the block. But this was kind of completely new. Because when I created this one, I hadn't seen that one before either. Sometimes I've got it up here and I can make us a whole new block. So then in that was week 1 and 2 and 3. Seems like we should have another week here, but this was last week's block. And oh, how did I love this. Again, I used the triangles in those fancy corners, I call them, but in the center, I used our snowball friendship block that you can get over at the website. This pattern was completely free. And then, so you need to have the May Quilt Lab set, and then you could grab that quick, a free block, and you could make this particular star. So we had 2 beautiful new stars done. And so I think I've shared with you all before, I love stars. I love the stars. Star blocks are one of the blocks besides, Log Cabin. And Log Cabin brings so many people into the quilting world. But stars are the kind of block that most people see in a quilt and go, wow, I wish I could do that. And then they get a little interested in quilting and want to start doing it. Excuse me, my hair's all goofy today. And so in the Riley Blake set this month, block number 14, which was called, let me see here, it was called the Inside Out Star. That's the Build a Quilt pattern set for the Inside Out Star. It was block number 14, and this one was created by Melissa Mortensen. So Melissa created that beautiful block for us. And you get that in that free set of Riley Blake blocks. And this was mine. That's how I created mine. And we use this block to really talk about color and how. So this has the same colors Melissa used, but I used 2 different versions of each of the colors and got much more interest into this block. And so we talked about that. And so you can look at that video for this one. However, if you caught my quick little live I did late Wednesday night when I got home from that meeting, I had done a little bit of a fabric haul online, and it was waiting for me when I got home. So I did a live unboxing. And several people showed up. I'm surprised you guys were up that late, but you were. And so I found 3 fabrics I love. These were all Kimberbell basics. And so I've done this week's block in these fabrics because some of you had sent me notes this week and said, can you do a block where we can find the fabric? Because I know sometimes, like with these, I did the Riley Blakes, I did scrappy fabrics just because I couldn't get a hold of the Riley Blake fabrics in time, because we started a couple weeks late. And so I thought, well, why not use the Kimberbell Basics? Because I think the Kimberbell Basics line, and Kim has really added to that collection, they're beautiful fabrics, beautiful assortment of colors. Those are all from her basic line. That's some of the older ones from the basic line. Except that, well, that one is an older one, and that's one of the ones I used in this week's block. But I found this one in that beautiful aqua color that I love so much. And then this one is the red version, and I'll tell you why I chose this red in a minute. And then just a little bit of white fabric. And then I found this yellow doodle, which is a smaller doodle. She now has like the doodle in like 3 sizes, but that yellow was really good. Excuse me. Oh, excuse me. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, that's the allergies for me. So these are the fabrics I used this week for our block. Are you ready to see it? It's another new star block. So I will show you, first I'll show you my graphic that I created. And I'm just calling this Starlight because it's a star in a star. And I love that. So did you see what I've done here? Can you tell? This is one of the stars from Melissa Mortensen's block, just one of them. And this block gets made in a very special way, not like we make these blocks traditionally with Build a Quilt or any other scenario. So this gets made where you create this whole line, one square. So you make this whole section twice for the top and the bottom. You make 2 flying geese units and 1 square to put all that together, because if you see, they're pretty small, right? They're pretty small. And so instead of making you work with a lot of tiny pieces of fabric, I thought, why not, when I was digitizing, make this whole first row one piece. So it's kind of fun to mix and match those things and how we can create them with the Build a Quilt system to kind of save us. And again, saved us some seaming and things like that. So are you ready to see it? There she is. Isn't she pretty? I love how it turned out. I was going to do my star points in the red. And I thought, no, why not match the star points of the small star with the star points here and make them the same color? I used the yellow, and then this is a square. And if you kind of pull your eyes back, this star is sitting in a square that's on point. So I used the same colors there. That's how I chose that. And then I used this with it. So when I was playing with the color to make my diagram, I used that color I love so much. And then look at them together. Didn't that turn out well as a match? I really loved how that turned out. Now, I will tell you, the reason I chose this red is, do you see this red here? This was kind of a tomato red. It was called in my color assortment. And so when I looked at this red kind of reminds me of like tomato soup made with cream or milk, where it gets that kind of a light milky color to it. So that's why I chose it. And this fabric and this fabric are the same pattern in different colors. And that's the nice thing about Kimberbell. This pattern comes in lots of colors, and the doodle comes in lots of colors. So you could make this block in these fabrics using different colors if you wanted to. But didn't it turn out pretty? I really love it. So we ended up this month with 3 new star blocks, this one and this one and this one for this week. And so the demos at the end are going to be the demo for creating this block, the demo for the triangle, and the demo for the fancy corner. Now, those that who have been making them, the fancy corner and that triangle, I know, like, I feel like a pro at it now because I've been making them so much. But for those of you that are new, go ahead and watch them, and it'll help you out on how you make those. And so now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks, including the May block here, that are all 10 by 10. All 16 of these Riley Blake blocks are all 10 by 10. So I'm really getting a nice library of 10 by 10 blocks. And here's something special. I did announce this earlier this week, but I will tell you all again. If you are a Quilt Lab subscriber, I have added a new benefit. I am going back and I am digitizing February and March and April's block, because remember, we start and we go from February through the end of next January. That's our year for Quilt Lab subscription. So I'm doing February, March, and April's block. Now, April, we had 3 versions of the block. I'm doing the basic block. You should know that. I don't want everybody to get all excited that I'm doing all 3. I'm only doing the basic one because it's the one that can be used a lot. I'm digitizing all 3 of those into 10 by 10 size. None of them came in a 10 by 10 size. And you're getting them if you are a Quilt Lab subscriber. I should be able to send those to you tomorrow, Monday, by the end of the evening, hopefully earlier, but I should be able to get them to you before I go to bed Monday night. I'm almost done with all the digitizing. You'll get the digital files and you'll get a cut sheet for that size. All the other instructions are in the original packet, okay? So, and for the rest of this subscription year, if we have a Quilt Lab block that doesn't already come as a 10 by 10 size, and they don't always, then I will digitize that size and I will send it to the Quilt Lab subscribers. So by the end of the year, if you do that, you will have 16 Riley Blake blocks that were free. You'll have 12 Quilt Lab blocks that are now 10 by 10. That's 26. And now you'll have 27, 28, and 29 that we've created with these particular blocks. So when you make this one, you want to make the 4 corners and the 4 triangles from the May Blooming Star block, and you want to make the star block that was block number 14 in the Riley Blake Block Challenge by Melissa Mortensen. Use any colors you like, but I've told you about what those fabrics are. And because they come in lots of colors, you could choose a different set of colors if you wanted and still use those same prints from Kimberbell, okay? And so you're going to end up with a huge library of 10 by 10 blocks and segments. And that 10 by 10 size is really a sweet spot size for quilt blocks. I know we love these big jumbo blocks. They're really popular. I love them. I really love them because you can get a quilt made in no time. Because to make a 60 by 60 quilt, with a block that's a 15 by 15, you only need to make 9 blocks and you're done. Then you're quilting and you're off to the races. You're finished with a 60 by 60 quilt, which is a nice size for a wall, for a child's quilt, even a small lap quilt in the living room too. That would be a great size. So you're going to have, but this 10 by 10 is a really good traditional sized block. And I know a few of you had asked for them, so you're going to have plenty of them now. Alrighty. So before we go, I want to share a couple of things with you. I have a couple of thank you to give out today. Share thank yous. I like to always, if people send me things that I can share with the group or pictures that I can share with the group, I like to say thank you to them and tell you all what it is, because that's how we get inspired. So we have a lovely subscriber here at Sew in Common who is also a part of Quilt Lab, named Rose. Hi, Rose. I hope you're doing great, sweetheart. I hope you're having a great weekend. Rose sent me a lovely email this week. And she told me about a block. Now, I already had the book, not a block, a book. I already had this book, and Rose was so right when she found this book and decided that it was great for using with the Build-A-Quilt system. The book is called Quilt Book Genius Expanded 2nd Edition. Over 300 piece quilt blocks, 1,001 blocks with no math charts. Now, this is for a traditional quilting method, like using your sewing machine or by hand. However, I want to show you. May I have your attention, please? That's the name of this block right here, attention. And you see down here at the bottom, it has a breakout of all the segment pieces. So if we've made those segment pieces in Quilt Lab, if you have these already, or if you have our basics 1 or 2 set before those went away, then you have even more segments to use at this point. And don't worry if you don't have those sets. A brand new collection under a whole new name and everything is coming out that will have those in them. Most of them, we've taken a couple of them out, but a whole new collection is coming later this summer. And then you can make these because it shows you the pieces. So look at here. Oh my gosh. So bear claws. Do you guys recognize that block? Maybe you'll recognize it if you look down here. That's the block called Vintage Delight in the Riley Blake Block Challenge. That's the exact block that she used to create her block. That's exactly it. And so you already have that pattern, but I love it. And to be honest with you, it's books like these that give me inspiration for when I'm creating blocks, because a lot of times I will take traditional blocks that, you know, have been around forever, that aren't copyrighted and all that. And if they are from somebody, I will always tell you, of course, but then I can create them for us to make Build a Quilt, because the whole idea of Build a Quilt is that you can use those segment pieces to make all kinds of quilts and blocks that you want to. So let's look. Okay, we have, I just saw one here. Let me look. Did I lose it now? Oh, well, in here, there's even a simple 9 patch. Oh, where is it? Right here. A simple 9 patch there. You could do it with just the squares. I know we have squares in several of the blocks that you have. Well, I lost the one I was going to show you, but there's lots of them in here. And so this book can be really helpful to you if you want to try your hand at making your own quilt design using your Build a Quilt segment pieces. It's called Quilt Block Genius. Expanded 2nd edition. The 1st edition is still out there, but there aren't quite as many. I think there's like 30 or 40 more in this book. The book was not overly expensive, $24.99, but I think I got mine for $19.99 when I got it, because I think I had a coupon or something. Now, it gives you all the information, charts and stuff back here if you're going to be using traditional quilting for the no math part. Which is nice, but always use whatever the cut list on your Build a Quilt pattern says, because remember, I build in extra for you for the machine embroidery. So settings and charts, but just having all these blocks, you guys could be making quilts forever. So Rose, thank you so much, dear, for sending me that information. That made me go and grab mine, because I haven't looked mine over in a while. So I went and grabbed it out of my library. Thank you so much. And then also, if you were with us Thursday night for live, we have a lovely lady with us now named Sandy. Hi, Sandy. I hope you're having a great weekend. And she lives in the state of Michigan, which is just the next state up from me, because I'm in Illinois. Well, kind of up and to the side a little bit, because Wisconsin's right above us. But anyway, I kind of know my geography a little bit there. Anyway, Sandy is from Michigan, which is a beautiful state. If you've never vacationed in Michigan and you like to do like outdoor things like lakes and skiing and camping and just all kinds of beautiful things, it's just a really, really beautiful state. We've stayed up there several times, and growing up, we used to travel up there and stuff. I love Michigan, and Michigan right now is having their all Michigan shop hop. I know the last couple of years we've had an all Illinois shop hop. I don't know if ours is going on right now or not. I haven't received any information, so I'm thinking maybe it's not. I don't know, but I need to check that out. Anyway, it's running through, I believe, the end of July. And in the description below, I'm going to put the link so that you can go to the page and see it. And when you go to the page, excuse me, the very first thing is a free quilt pattern That quilt pattern is super easy and nice to do, and it's perfect for Build-A-Quilt. And I'm going to create it in the Build-A-Quilt system, and it is going to be a free quilt pattern for us. Now, I think that probably we will start making it together. We might use that for Wednesday Night Live in August. Okay. It's a great throw size, but it's super easy to make. I think a lot of it you might already have made in some of our stuff. I'm forgetting the picture now. Hang on just one second. Let me see if I can grab the picture. Okay, I brought up the picture. It's going to be a 64 by 75 lap quilt, and you can see it. And it's quilted, let's see, designed, pieced, and quilted by Julie Parker of Quilts Plus. So we have Julie. Every year in these shop hops, there's always a quilt that you can do. And this one is called the Starry Snowball Lap Quilt. Do you see what that is, guys? That's the snowball block. And when did we do the snowball block? We did it in our star just last week. Guys, we've already done it. We've already done the snowball. Now, the stars in here, I believe, get made through a set of sashing. So I'm going to have to go through that and digitize it, make sure the snowball block that you already have is the right size. If it needs to be a different size, I will create a different size for it. But I will get this digitized and written up for us this month in July, and we will start creating this during the month of August. Now, there are a lot of pieces of border on here. I may create a different border for us, or let you decide whether or not you want to do the border or not. I will do the little bit of sashing in here for us because it makes the pattern. But these straight pieces of border, I want to bring out a border set for us, but I am not quite happy with where it is yet. So that's probably not going to be available just to do long strips of fabric. So probably what I'll have us do is look at the pattern, cut the strips, traditionally just cut the strips and sew them on just like you would any other border. And you'll still be able to use your seam line that's on the back side to help you get that 1/4 inch, and you won't have to worry about doing a 1/4 inch foot or anything on that either. We should be able to do that. But it's called the Starry Snowball Lap Quilt. Isn't it cute? I really like it. You could do that and make it like planets and stars and stuff if you like the more space kind of an idea, which you guys know I love that. So that's it, and we will do that during the month of August. So Sandy, thank you so much for sending me all of that information on the All Michigan Shop Hop. If your state is doing an all name your state shop hop and you have information that you can send me, I'll share it with everybody, because a lot of times there's stuff that you can do through that shop hop. You can go to like the websites and stuff for stores and have a great time, even though you're not in the state. And a lot of times they'll do like little lives and stuff that you can watch and participate. So they're lots of fun. So if you have one, send me that information in an email at support@sewincommon.com. In fact, if you need to contact me, you can contact me at supportincommon.com. One more thing before I let you all go to the demos. Wednesday Night Live, we're doing our first pattern in the My First Build-A-Quilt. My First Build-A-Quilt is all about helping you create good skills and learning new skills with the Build-A-Quilt system. This piece is 20 by 20 when we finish it. Do 9 of them, you have a 60 by 60 quilt. That might be something a more advanced Build-A-Quilter would want to do. But if you're brand new, you're going to learn 6 segment pieces in this. So you're going to learn something from the very basic to something which is kind of in the medium level. And so we're doing this on Wednesday nights. You can go in the live section here at the channel, and the last 2 Wednesdays are week 1 and week 2. This coming week will be week 3. We're doing the last 2 segment pieces. And then in week 4, we're going to be doing the finished quilting, because the thing that is different about the My First Build-A-Quilt sets is I want you to be able to start and completely finish them. So you get it's a simple, it's nothing complicated, but you get a simple finished quilting design so that you can finish this all the way through. This pattern set, during the time that we are doing it, is $5 at the website. That's all it is. Less than a cup of coffee around here these days. That's all it is. Once we've finished the design in 2 weeks and finished the project, it'll go up to a normal price. So, which is the $5 is less than half. So it's a great buy for you. And like I said, if you're more experienced, you want to grab this to get the different segment sizes. And you might want to do this as a full size 60 by 60 quilt, or even bigger. You could do 3, 6, 9, 12 blocks and have a rectangular throw quilt easily with this piece. So that's it. Join us Wednesday night for Wednesday Workshop Live at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Okay, everybody, I can't thank you all enough for joining me today for Quilt Lab. To find all these patterns and things I've talked about, please visit our website, www.sewuncommon.com. Easy to remember. Everything's Sew Uncommon. Okay, so that's pretty simple, right? Again, if you need to contact me, you can at support@sewuncommon.com. If you haven't already, would you please go ahead and subscribe to the channel and become part of the Sew Uncommon family? We'd all love to have you. I know I would, and I know that all of the folks out there that quilt with me with Build a Quilt would love to have another new quilting friend. So please subscribe. And if I can ask you, please like and share the videos. That's how other people get to know about Build a Quilt, and that's how we built this family. This family of Sew Uncommon would not be this big in just 18 months if it weren't for every single one of you. Because when I first started and was building it, it was a little bit here, a little bit there, nice and steady. But then you guys started telling people and sharing with people, and we started growing just exponentially. And we now have Build-A-Quilters all over the world, literally all over the world. It blows me away. So please subscribe, like, and share. Thank you all so very much. And as I tell you at the end of every single video, because I really mean it, quilters, we are artists and we make the world beautiful. So have a great week and go sew life beautiful. Bye for now, everybody. Hi, everybody. This video is for our demonstration for making a simple square. Now, this is a very simple process, but I wanted to show it to you all because if you're new to Build a Quilt, you might not understand how this works. You're going to, at the end, just trim it out 1/4 inch all the way around with your ruler. But I did want to show that to you. And I know some of you are saying, why would I do something so simple? Because in the end, you're going to get your guidelines for stitching your blocks together. And that can be really helpful when you go to stitch something so simple to another segment block. You still have that stitching line at the end. And so that will help you make sure and get the perfect seam allowance each and every time. So I have my stabilizer here in my hoop. This is so very simple. I'm going to just bring that up a little bit. There you go. Step 1 is to stitch down the border or guideline all the way around. It's going to make the square. You need 1 piece of fabric, whatever size that you had to cut for the pattern, and your glue stick. This literally takes less than a minute to stitch these out. Very quick and fast. While that's working, I can come in here and just get my glue stick down there just a little bit. And now all I do is lay my fabric down over the square, and I have plenty of space here all the way around because I always give you a generous cut of fabric so you don't have to make sure you're right over the edge. And we'll stitch out the second machine step, which is to stitch the fabric down, and then you're done with your piecing of your block. That's how easy these are. Now, I know for those of us that have quilted for a long time, traditionally, you're like, well, I could just cut my blocks and sew them. You could, but that negates the whole point of the Build-A-Quilt system in regard to the idea of having that guideline. And really, it is so much simpler. And it really helps you get that precise seam line every single time. Alrighty, we're done stitching out the square in the hoop. Until next time, everybody, sew life beautiful. Okay, here we are at my machine. Now I'm using a brother, but whatever machine you're using, you've loaded your file with your either a USB stick, or your machine might allow you to do it via Bluetooth or a wire, whatever you use. Let's just talk real quickly about fabric prep. It's really important to prep your fabric in advance. So one, it's a more efficient process for you. So here for my flying geese unit, I have my rectangle and I have my two triangles. Now, how did I get these two perfect triangles? You're told in the instructions to cut a square, and then this is one of those times when you're told to subcut. And to subcut these squares, you're going to cut from diagonal point to diagonal point with your ruler on your cutting mat. And when you do that, you get your two triangles, and then you have the perfect two pieces. So that's what is meant by subcutting. Now, you can see I keep a little basket with my tools, the ones that we just talked about, right here next to my machine. So they're all in one place. They're not rolling around on me. Today, I'm going to be using black thread so that you can see it. However, my favorite thread is 0184 by Isacord. It's a light dove gray. It's actually called Pearl, but it's the perfect color for piecing. It won't show through. You won't get shadows from it. If when you sew them together, you see a little bit of it, it's going to blend in with your fabric. It's not going to be any kind of a problem. But today I'm going to be using black so that you can see it. And I have my hoop all set up with my wash away stabilizer. And I am going to link my stabilizer video at the end of this video for you, because it's really important to use wash away. Other in the hoop type quilting systems will use a poly mesh, and that's okay, but there is a real reason as a quilter we want to use a wash away, and that's all in the video for you. So I will link that at the end of this how-to video. So now I've placed my hoop, and I'm going to start with step one, machine step one, and that's what it will say in your instructions. They will call these machine steps. It's stitching out. Now, machine step one and machine step two on your flying geese unit is stitched directly onto your stabilizer. What it is giving you is an outline of the piece, and it's giving you a placement line. Step two gives you the placement line for placing your first piece of fabric. So here we go on number two. Excuse me. Now, regarding your fabric, I give you really generous cut sizes because we have to make sure to have enough to come over our border line so that we can trim it at the end. And I don't want you ever, when you flip your fabric, to be in a scenario where you don't have enough for the flip. So I'm going to remove my hoop a little bit right here so you can see it. Now, this is the perfect time for the next step, which is machine step three, to place a little of your glue stick right here in that center triangle. And then place your first fabric, just like it says in the instruction. First pieces of fabric are always laid right side up. Now that's plenty of fabric, and you'll see that here in a second. Like I said, my cut sizes for you are generous, so that you don't end up, you know, having problems on your edges and your flipping. So now this is machine step 3, and it is tacking down our fabric number 1. And you'll see that in your instructions. Now, in the instructions, it's going to tell you, we need to remove, to trim along this edge and along this edge. Don't trim beyond the boundary here, because we'll trim that at the end when we trim the whole piece out of the stabilizer. Don't trim above the point of the triangle, because again, that's the outside of your overall piece, and you'll want to be able to trim that later. So let's lay this on a flat surface, and let me adjust down my camera. There we go. Now you can see it. I've got my scissors, and I'm going to trim roughly 1/4 inch here and 1/4 inch here. I just eyeball it. I don't mark it. I don't put a ruler down and mark it or anything like that. If you feel more comfortable, you can, but really you're just trying to eyeball that. And I left all of that up at the top over the border, and I'm going to do that again over here. I'm going to leave plenty above for trimming later. And I'm just trimming this right off. There you go. So now I'm going to have enough when I stitch across this later. I'm going to have enough of this up here to trim off, and I'll have plenty down here as well. All right, your next part of your instruction says to lay piece number 2 right side down on piece number 1. So second and subsequent pieces always get laid right side down, just like that. Easy, right? Now we'll place this back into the machine. And let me bring this back up a little. There we go. And we're going to do machine stitch, or machine step number 4. And I'll just hold my stabilizer down there a little bit so you can see it. Now, the next step is number 4, which says to flip fabric B, this is fabric B, into space 2 and stitch machine step 5. I'm going to put a little bit of glue right there in space number 2, and now I'm going to flip my fabric. And this is when you can use your seam roller to kind of give that a little press, or you can use your fingers, either way. And now machine step number 5. And I just kind of, as it's working, sometimes I just kind of like let my fingers guide it a little bit, but please keep your fingers well away from the needle and the mechanism. Now on this one, there's no need to do any trimming at all, because all of your excess fabric is outside the outer boundary box, and that will be trimmed later. Then we're on to our next step, which is number 5 in the instructions. And this is piece number 3. And again, it's your other triangle. So it's just like we did the last one. We're going to place it right side down, but on the other side this time. There we go. And now we're going to do machine step 6. And you're going to get a perfect flying geese unit every time you do this. And flying geese in the more traditional patchwork process can be a little bit complicated. There's measuring and things you have to do. With this, it's easy peasy. Now I flipped that. I put a little glue in there. And now we're going to do machine step 7, which is just going to tack it down here on the other side. And I'm just going to kind of just like petting it a little bit to keep it flat. The glue will hold it there though. Okay, so now we're ready for our very last step, which is machine step 8. But I want to talk to you really quickly
because this is where you would use tape to tape down where your fabric comes together. And that will allow you, let's move our camera down, that will allow you, your foot, not to get caught on the fabric and flip it over and end up causing trouble. So what I do is I take a piece of my embroidery tape, I tape it down, I give that a little rip there. So that's one section. And I have 3 joining areas on the flying geese unit at the top peak and in the bottom 2 corners. So I have those taped. Now my foot, when it's going around to do our boundary box, which becomes our guidelines for sewing our segments together, it's not going to get hit. Let me see if we can move our machine a little bit closer. There you go. I think that's a little bit better. I had it a little bit far away. Now we're going to stitch down the final machine step, which is machine step 8. And you will have created your first flying geese unit on your embroidery machine. See how simple it was? Just so you know, I'm using 700 stitches per minute. And if I were just doing this and not talking, my machine says it takes this 2 minutes to stitch out. So really quick and easy. Okay, now we can remove this. Now you'll want to remove your tape, and then you'll take the whole thing out of your hoop, and then we're going to trim these. And we'll trim all 3 of our demonstrated segment pieces at one time. So I'm not going to do that here. And now we are ready. We finished our flying geese unit, super simple, and we are ready to move on to our split rail block. Okay, everybody, here we are at my machine, and this is the demo for the segment A piece of the Riley Blake Block Challenge week 14 block, or block 14, called the Inside Out Star. And this is your segment A. You have this sheet in your instructions, and this is the creation, what I call the creation sheet. It tells you how many of each of these pieces to make. There's another one too, because there's another part to it. But the one we're making in this demo is the segment A. So you're going to make 2 of each of these colorways, and your cut sheet will have told you how many of these things to cut out in total, so that you have all of your pieces. So the one I'm demoing right now is this one, the red outer and the white star points. This is one of the negative color blocks, meaning the star point has no color. And you can see I've already done my flying geese units. And here is the yellow ones, which are similar to these red ones in that the star points are the white fabric. So I can get 2 in a hooping, easily 2 in a hooping. And let me just remove my hoop really quickly. I've already done my first one up here at the top. I've moved my pattern down to the bottom of my hoop. I've done my border box and my first placement line here. Now I'm going to place my little bit of glue stick right there inside that triangle, and I'm going to lay my red rectangle right on top of it, just like that. Give it a little press with my fingers. And now I'm going to stitch it down. Now this block does have a little bit of trimming, and I'll walk you through that each time so you know exactly when you're going to be trimming. These are really easy to make, and the reason I did this as one long segment piece is because look at how tiny your piece is. Look between my index finger and my thumb. Look at how tiny those pieces of fabric would be, and look at all of the different seams you would have on the back. But doing it with Build a Quilt as a single piece, you don't have all of that seaming. It lies nice and flat. All right, so we have stitched the first piece down. Now we do have some trimming to do. We're going to trim this inside line and this inside line. We don't trim this or this because that's above and below the border of the entire piece, and it will get trimmed at the end. And I have to kind of turn mine upside down because I'm a lefty. but I'm just going in here and giving it a general 1/4 inch-ish little cut there. Remember, your seams are built in, so you just don't want to be cut on that line. You want it to look like it's roughly a 1/4 inch. And trust me when I tell you, we get so used to using our rulers and all and cutting exact 1/4 inches. Once you've done this a few times, it's just going to come. You're just going to get that eye. It's like getting muscle memory in your hands. You get eye memory for what that should look like. Now, the next step is to place my white piece of fabric for my first star point it's on the left side. And let me make sure. Yes, on the left side. And I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of glue stick here. And I'll replace it into remember, the second and all subsequent pieces are right sides together. And my first piece is always right side up. So my red piece was right side up. My white pieces and my red corner pieces are all going to start out right side down or right sides together, so that when I flip them, you'll see the pretty side of the fabric. Now we're going to flip this corner. Give it a little finger press, or you can take it out and use your seam roller. There we go. And now I'm going to stitch this down, and then we'll have another little bit to trim. So we trim three times on this segment piece, but it's quick and easy. This whole piece only takes 2 minutes or less to make, probably less if you don't have to talk your way through it. So here we are. This at the bottom stays because it's below the boundary line. This up here stays, it's above the boundary line, but right here, that's where we need to do our trimming. So I'm just going to lift this up, give it a little bit of a look. Just check out my 1/4 inch. There we go. I know that seems little, but that's plenty of fabric to have there outside that boundary box. Now we're going to take a red square or whatever color you're working on that is appropriate. Here is the front side of my fabric, so I'm going to lay it right side down, right like that. And I'm going to put a little bit of my glue stick right there, replace it into my machine, and tack that right down. So this is really easy to do. You're getting far less seams, and it makes putting this entire block together much easier. I had hoped to do the center section of the block this way as well, but because of the way the star is created by the original designer, it's unable to be digitized as one unit because there are interior corners that can't be flipped. But luckily, we were able to do this, digitize this top. This is your top piece and your bottom piece. Let me get my block layout. Let me get my single block layout. That'll be easier, I think, for you to see. Here it is. From your pattern, you'll have this in your pattern. So you can see we're making this piece right here, and when you flip it around, it's this piece right here. The center piece is made with 3 pieces, so you're going to have a seam here and a seam here. And I do apologize that didn't turn out as a single piece. I had hoped it would, but because of the way this comes to a point on the inner, it can't be done as a single piece because it will end up not processing it properly. You end up with an interior corner that can't be flipped. So, but luckily these pieces, which have the smallest pieces of fabric, are done as a single unit, and that's what we're doing right now. Okay, so I'm ready to lay down my next wing piece, which is my white piece. I'm going to lay it right side down right there. Put myself a little bit of glue there and readjust that for a sec because I scooched it out of the way. There we go. And stitch that down. You will need 2 pieces of tape for your final stitch around to cover up some of these wonky fabric tails. I'll show you exactly where to put that when we get there. Don't worry. Okay, now we're going to flip this. Give it a little press. Stitch that down. Now we're going to remove this and we're going to trim again, just like we did on the other side. Remove my hoop. So I'm not going to trim here or way up here. I'm just going to come in here with my scissors and trim roughly 1/4 inch on that interior line. Then I'm going to place my next red square, which is my final piece for this segment. Put my glue there. Replace this into my machine and stitch that down. Okay, now we're going to flip this fabric. And we'll stitch this down. And then you'll need your 2 pieces of tape for the next stitching. Okay. Now I'm going to take this out of the hoop so I can show you exactly where to place your tape. And remember our pro tip, always place your tape outside the lines of your stitching so that you don't end up having to pull the tape out of the stitches. So it's going to start the stitching here. It's going to come around. It can get hooked right there. So we're going to put our first piece of tape right there. It's outside the stitching, but it's holding that down so your foot will glide over that. Then it will come around. It's okay here because it's going with it. It's okay here because it's going with it as well. But right there is where you're going to have the problem. My piece of tape covers up this piece and this piece. That's fine. Not a problem. But if your piece of tape is little, you want it to at least cover this piece right there. All right, now we're going to replace it into our machine. Do the final stitch around. That ends up being your stitch line for when you stitch your segments together at your sewing machine. And remember, all you do is put them together and follow that stitch line, and you get the perfect seam every time. No need to fear that dreaded 1/4 inch seam foot or anything of that nature. And then I just peel that off when it comes around, because since I've laid that outside my lines, I can reuse these pieces of tape several times. And now I have my 2 red and white pieces done, and I can move on to my next color. But that's how simple it is to make these segment A pieces. When you remove the stabilizer from the hoop, you'll just trim around with your ruler and your rotary cutter 1/4 inch outside of these lines. Okay, let's move on to our next demonstration. Hello everyone, we're here at my machine. This is the demonstration for a simple triangle block, just like the one we see here. I know it's hard to see, but if I hold it up, you can see where the triangle is. Now, triangles aren't used a lot, but sometimes they're used to create larger squares. So you'll have a square, and then you'll put a triangle on each corner, and that will give it a larger, make it a larger square and turn it 90 degrees so you can have your inner square on point. So it is a useful block to have. And typically you start out using a rectangular piece of fabric, and then you trim around it when you trim it out. It's just like making the square, which is 2 simple steps. The first step is to stitch machine step 1 directly onto your stabilizer, which is wash away. Then you'll put a little glue. There we go. Now I'm using my gray thread that I always use, but let me take it out so you can see it better. You can see, and that also is not only the boundary of this piece, but it's also the placement of this piece, because it's just that simple. Now I'm going to put a little triangle and a dot of fabric glue there, and I'm going to take my piece of rectangular fabric and just lay it. I know there's my point. I've got plenty of room here, There's the bottom. I've got plenty of room here, so I can even move this up and give myself plenty of room on top. There's my top and bottom, so I'm great. There's my sides. I'm great. Now we're going to do machine step 2, and this piece will be done. That's how fast and easy it is to do triangles. Now, if you have our blooming star block, that is a block where we used these triangles to set our center square on point. Now, if you do this in a traditional way, there's lots of measuring and cutting and all kinds of craziness that has to go on to get those right. But it's really simple to do with our embroidery machine. We just do what we just did. And now we have our triangle. I'll cut that out 1/4 inch all the way around, and I'll be ready to add it to my block. Enjoy. All right, everyone, here we are at my machine. This demonstration is for what I call the modified flying geese corner unit, because it's made very similar to a flying geese, but it has the extra modification of these side wings, and it is specifically for the corner of a project. It will make the corner of a square, as you can see there with that 90-degree angle. And then you can see that these two little wing pieces end up making points for your stars. Okay, excuse me just one second. I have a little bit of allergies going on today. I apologize. So here on my hoop, I have stitched out step 1 and machine step 2 directly onto the stabilizer. Step 1 is the overall size of the unit. And step 2 is the placement for the first piece of fabric. And as we can see, the first piece of fabric is going to be our square. So whatever fabric you're using for your square, that's what you'll want to put here. And I'm going to put a little bit of my glue stick there and take my fabric. Now, I always give you a piece plenty big enough. If you place it the way I'm going to show you now, you can technically cut a slightly smaller piece. So here are my inner corners right here. I need to make sure that I have roughly 1/4 inch of fabric on the outside of these lines, and of course the top and the sides. So if I just placed it like that, which is perfectly fine, I'm going to cover everything, and then I'll need to do some trimming here and here. However, if I place this roughly 1/4 inch to start, and I can feel that line, so I know from there to there, that's roughly 1/4 inch. Good. And if it's the same on the bottom, and I just press that down, then my sides I don't need to worry about, because those will be trimmed at the end when we trim the whole piece out of the stabilizer. Now I'm going to place that back onto my machine, and we'll stitch that down. And that is this piece right here. Or it might be in that direction, or that direction, or that direction. You know what I mean, because it's going to be that square. So now, if I laid it out the way I just showed you, I don't need to do any trimming at this step, which, you know, we always love it if we don't have to do trimming. Now, if you laid this out and there's more fabric here and here, then just come in and trim to 1/4 inch or roughly 1/4 inch on each side. Now, the next piece we're going to do is, so this is fabric A. We're going to lay down fabric piece B, which in this case is my green. And so I have my triangle, kind of a funny triangle. Looks like I didn't get this pressed, so I'm going to, there we go. I'm just going to use this other piece. Now, for laying these out, it's kind of a funny thing. So what I do is I lay it down and then I flip it just to try to make sure that I'm going to have enough fabric there to cover. So sometimes it will require that you lay a different side. Typically laying the long side down works really well, but on this piece it needs to be this long side. Right there, I just lay it right sides together, or pretty sides together. Now we'll go ahead and stitch that down. And on this unit, I put my fabric glue down after I flipped it to make sure it's going to be in the right place. Because a couple of times I did have to just snip my wing out and redo it. But now if I lay this down like this, that's going to cover more than plenty. And there will be one little piece of trimming. I'm going to put my little piece of glue right there. Lay that over, give it a little finger press, or I could press that with a seam roller, either way. And now we'll stitch that down. And this is machine step 5. Great. Now there's a little bit of trimming on this one, and I'll show you that here in a second. This is fine. This is the outside of the unit and will get trimmed when we're done. But this piece right here is the inner piece. So we are going to trim that with our snips, roughly 1/4 inch. Just like that. Perfect. Now we'll take our next piece. And on this piece, what I like to do is I like to lay my fabric down and say, okay, that's how it needs to go with the point here. So if I do that and I flip this, when I flip this over, will it cover? And it will. Let's try it and see if I do it on this long side. Oh, looks like I would miss my corner there, so I don't want to use that side. What about this side? Oh, no, wait, no. So on this one, it looks like using this shorter side gives me the better fit in the long run. So we'll do that. Place this back in, and this is machine step 6. I've given you these pieces that are a little bit more triangular shaped because I find that with this technique, it's easier to use a fabric shape that is similar to what you're trying to stitch, if at all possible. And you didn't cut that. You cut a rectangle and then sliced it down the diagonal. So there we go. See, that'll be perfect now. And now we'll do machine step 7. And then we're going to repeat these 2 steps over here on this side. Okay, now bring that up just a little bit. And I'm going to lay my fabric down. Will that cover everything? It certainly should. So I think if I put it on this long edge, we're going to be okay. Right sides together as always, and I'm just going to use a pair of tweezers to straighten up my thread there so it doesn't unthread itself. I have a machine that loves to unthread. I think it gets an A for unthreading. Okay, now I'm just going to put a piece of my glue there, a little swipe of my glue. I guess it's not really a piece, but you know what I mean. Now we'll flip this forward, give it a little finger press. I always like to kind of hold these down a little bit, but keep your fingers far away from that needle. You don't want to accidentally get caught there. Now we are going to do a little bit of trimming right here. That gives me a nice 1/4 inch right there, so that'll be really nice when I go to cut this out. Now I'm going to trim off right there, and now I just need to do my last piece. So again, that's how it needs to lay down with the point going that way. So if I just flip that over and put it like that, yes, that should work just fine for me. Lay that right there, and I'll go ahead and put my glue there because I'm pretty sure that's going to be okay. And I'll stitch that down. This is machine step 10. Now we're going to flip this. Give it a little finger stitch or finger press. There we go. Now the last thing we need to do is do our stitch all the way around, machine stitch 12. And we need to place a couple of pieces of our tape. When we look at this, it's going to start here and it's going to work its way around. Okay, so it could get caught here because that foot could flip that back. So we're going to lay our tape outside of the line and hold that down. And if your tape ever can be taped onto your stabilizer, it's going to hold really well there, I've found over time. And then we keep coming down. Now it's going with this seam, so not a problem, but that one could be another one where things could get caught. So we'll put a piece of tape there and then it will finish. So we need 2 pieces of tape, looks like, on this one to make sure that it goes okay. Now this specific piece is used for our Build a Quilt Blooming Star block, but you will also start to see it in other blocks. And because you have it now in 3 sizes for a 10, an 8x8, and a 6x6 inch block, you can always add these into your quilts as corners if you want to create your own blocks. So now you know how to use this piece and how to make it regardless of what pattern that you're using. And now I would just take this over to my cutting table and trim 1/4 inch all the way around so it looks just like that.